I've never met people like politicians. They are the most dishonest people I've ever met.
This guy's a pathological liar.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is...
That's almost a clinical...
well, it is.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders is right, and yes, it is clinical. Donald Trump is a pathological liar, and the news media, for the most part, has no idea how to deal with him. Television news, in particular, needs new rules about how to deal with a pathological liar running for president. For example, last week on election night, every cable news network carried Donald Trump's 40-minute victory speech in its entirety, and it was filled with lies from start to finish, and the networks then devoted virtually no time to reporting or analyzing those lies for that audience that just heard them. Donald Trump got away with every one of those lies on live television to that huge audience that night. And then the next day, some of those lies were taken apart in news articles for a much smaller audiences and on some television shows for a much smaller audience than saw that huge election night coverage of his speech. Television news has always worked on the assumption that politicians will not try to get away with outright provable lies live on TV where everyone can see them. A few cable news shows don't make any attempt to correct those lies because the shows are basically cheering for Donald Trump anyway. But the so-called establishment media, where neutrality is prized, is failing miserably in dealing with a pathological liar. It is impossible to be neutral in the face of lies. But the establishment media is so calcified in its posture of neutrality that it feels to them like challenging a lie is somehow partisan, like challenging a lie is somehow taking sides. And so they let the Trump lies fly all over television. No Trump interviewer on television has ever attempted to correct every lie that Donald Trump has said right to that interviewer's face. Donald Trump knows that the faster he talks, the more lies he can tell, and the faster he talks, the harder it is for any interviewer to keep up with his lies. How many lies does Donald Trump tell? Politico has actually tried to count them. Politico studied 4.6 hours of Trump talk last week, and they found one misstatement every 5 minutes on average. Essentially, they found that Donald Trump lies about everything he talks about, from our trade deficit with China to our trade deficit with Japan, to manufacturing jobs, healthcare, Christianity, how he is self-funding his campaign, and everything else you have ever heard him talk about. Joining us now is Darren Samuelson, one of the reporters who wrote Trump's Week of Errors, Exaggerations, and Flat-Out Falsehoods for Politico. He's a senior policy reporter for Politico. Darren, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for doing that hard work of the 4.5 hours of getting through every word. I would point out there, you know, that the once every 5 minutes on average means, I just want some viewers to know, they have experienced him telling 5 lies within 5 minutes, and we're talking about averages. So it's, and sometimes, you know, he talks about his children and his family, and he's not lying much when he does that. So it happens. But, you know, the other night, he started right away, the first thing, and we've talked about already tonight, that I beat Hillary Clinton in all the polls. And you guys took that apart beautifully. But I also want to show something he has said about trade with Japan, for example. Let's listen to that.
You have Japan, where the cars come in by the hundreds of thousands. They pour off the boats. We send them like nothing. We send them nothing. And by comparison, nothing.
Now, no one on TV has ever questioned that statement.
We do send a lot of things to Japan. I think they're our 4th largest trading partner, or number 4 in terms of sending things over to Japan, whether it be automobile manufacturing parts, whether it be drug pharmaceuticals, meat, pork. We are a big exporter to Japan of products. And so, yeah, we found, I think it was something like on the magnitude of $600 million, that we send over to.
Yeah, and Japan, by the way, Japan automakers also send factories to the United States. There are about 23, I believe, Japanese auto factories providing American jobs, making Toyotas, Nissans in the United States. So the Toyota is now an American car made in America. I'm not sure how many of them, purchased here are made here versus Japan, but that's why they came here, so they could make them here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Donald Trump is certainly taking, he's done this with China as well. He's talked about the trade deficit that we've had with multiple countries, and he's just sort of confounded it. He's talked about it over and over. He's been fact-checked before and many times over on this topic, and it just seems like he just keeps saying it.
And whenever he gives a number, like a trade deficit with China or a trade deficit with Japan, he just makes one up. He just exaggerates a number that's way bigger than whatever that number is. That's what you found.
Yeah, it's the 500 billion number that he just keeps repeating over and over and over again, and it's been hit by reporters, by PolitiFact, by Politico, by others, but he does continue to repeat it over and over again.
Let's listen to what he says about Christianity.
Christianity is being chipped away at. I mean, really, they've shut Christianity down.
They've shut Christianity down. When you went out and fact-checked that, could you find any Christian churches still open in America?
There were 7 in 10 Americans identify themselves as Christian.
Yes.
The polls that have been done show that a religion is thriving in the United States.
But this is the media's big failure, is he says things like that, and there's no one who challenges him on that because they want to move down their agenda of questions that they want to talk to him about in those interviews. And so those things just come pouring out unchallenged all the time.
Well, he was the liar of the year, I believe, was what PolitiFact gave him in 2015. Luckily, we do have some practice fact-checking campaigns. We've been doing it through 2012 as well. Donald Trump has really just stepped up and given us a lot more to write about, a lot more to check on a given basis. I mean, we've been watching every single debate, and throughout them all, I mean, he keeps us no doubt busy. We have to look, to Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz or others to just try and, fill the space. But certainly Donald Trump has the lead.
Darren Samuelson, great job. Really appreciate it. You guys at Politico did this. Really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us tonight.